Charles Lucky Luciano, a name that still resonates with power and infamy. The name still echoes through the corridors of criminal history, a testament to his enduring legacy. He wasn't just another gangster. He was a mastermind, a strategist who saw beyond the immediate gains of crime. He was an innovator, a visionary who transformed the underworld. Luciano transformed the brutal, chaotic landscape of organized crime in America, bringing a new level of sophistication and order. He established a new order, a sophisticated network built on power and ruthlessness, creating a criminal empire that was both feared and respected. Luciano's story is a classic tale of ambition, violence, and the intoxicating allure of power. His rise to the top was marked by cunning, strategy, and an unrelenting drive. Born in Sicily in 1897, he immigrated to New York City as a child, bringing with him the resilience and determination of his heritage. The teeming streets of the Lower East Side became his training ground, a place where he learned the harsh realities of life and survival. It was a rough neighborhood, a breeding ground for poverty and crime, where the strong thrived and the weak perished. Young Luciano, ambitious and cunning, quickly learned the rules of this unforgiving world. He understood that to survive, he had to be smarter, tougher, and more ruthless than his peers. He began his criminal career with petty theft and extortion, small-time crimes that taught him the basics of the underworld. Street gangs, like the 5 Points Gang, provided a sense of belonging and opportunity. They were the stepping stones to greater power and influence. Luciano, with his sharp mind and natural leadership, quickly rose through the ranks. He was a natural leader, someone who could command respect and loyalty. He wasn't afraid of violence, he embraced it. For Luciano, violence was not just a means to an end, but a tool to instill fear and maintain control. It was a tool, a way to instill fear and command respect. He knew that in the world of organized crime, power was everything. Luciano's ambition, however, stretched far beyond the confines of street gangs. He envisioned a criminal organization that could operate with the efficiency and structure of a legitimate business. He saw an opportunity to build something bigger, something more powerful. He wanted to create a network that could control the underworld and influence the upper echelons of society. He envisioned a criminal empire that could rival any legitimate business, one that could generate immense wealth and wield significant power. This vision would ultimately reshape organized crime in America, setting the stage for a new era of the mobster, one that was as strategic as it was ruthless. Salvatore Lucania, a name that would soon echo through the annals of American crime history. That was the name given to him at birth in the small Sicilian town of Lercara Fridi, a place where life was simple but harsh, where the rugged landscape mirrored the tough lives of its inhabitants. A name soon to be replaced by the more Americanized Charles Luciano, a transformation that symbolized his journey from the old world to the new. His family, like many others seeking a better life, immigrated to the United States in 1903. They arrived with dreams of prosperity, but the reality that awaited them was far from the American dream. They settled in New York City, a place brimming with both promise and peril. The Lower East Side, their new home, was a bustling neighborhood teeming with immigrants from all corners of the globe. The Lower East Side was a melting pot of cultures, but it was also a cauldron of poverty and crime. The streets were alive with the sounds of different languages, the smells of diverse cuisines, and the ever-present tension of survival. Tenement buildings, overcrowded and squalid, lined the narrow streets. Families were crammed into tiny apartments, struggling to make ends meet in a world that seemed indifferent to their plight. Gangs ruled the streets, offering protection and opportunity in equal measure. For many young boys, these gangs were both a refuge and a trap, a way to escape the grinding poverty, but also a path to a life of crime.
For a young, impressionable Luciano, the lure of the streets proved irresistible. The excitement, the camaraderie, and the promise of quick money were too tempting to resist. He quickly learned that survival in this concrete jungle demanded toughness and cunning. The streets were a battleground, and only the strong and the smart could thrive. He engaged in petty theft, running errands for local gangsters. These small-time crimes were his introduction to a world where the rules were made by those who had the power to enforce them. He learned to fight, to intimidate, to survive. Each day was a lesson in the harsh realities of life on the streets, and Luciano was a quick learner. The streets were his classroom, and crime was his education. Every corner, every alley, every shadow held a lesson for the young Luciano.
By his teens, Luciano had already established a reputation for himself. He was known as someone who could handle himself, someone who was not to be trifled with. He was fearless, ruthless, and ambitious. These traits set him apart from his peers and caught the attention of those who wielded real power in the underworld. He attracted the attention of more established criminals, men who saw in him the potential for greatness, or at least for great profit. They took him under their wing, teaching him the finer points of the criminal enterprise. Luciano's journey from the cobblestone streets of Sicily to the asphalt jungle of New York City had just begun. It was a journey that would see him rise to the pinnacle of the criminal world, a journey that would make him a legend. The New York City underworld of the early 20th century was a fragmented and chaotic landscape. Various gangs, each vying for power and control, operated within their own territories. These were not merely street thugs. They were organized criminal enterprises involved in gambling, extortion, and prostitution. Among these, 5 families emerged as the most powerful: the Marano, Profaci, Luciano, Galliano, and Bonanno families. Luciano, still a young man, navigated this treacherous landscape with a combination of street smarts and ambition. He aligned himself with powerful gangsters like Frank Costello and Meyer Lansky. These were men who recognized Luciano's potential and shared his vision for a more organized and profitable criminal underworld.
He proved his worth during the Prohibition era, a time when the ban on alcohol created a lucrative black market for bootlegging. Luciano, with his sharp mind for business and his willingness to use violence, quickly rose through the ranks. He established smuggling routes, bribed corrupt officials, and eliminated his rivals.
His reputation grew with each successful operation, and his influence within the 5 families expanded. Luciano, however, was not content with simply being a high-ranking gangster. He saw an opportunity to reshape the entire criminal underworld, to create an empire of his own. The old guard, however, stood in Luciano's way. These were men who had built their empires on the foundations of tradition and fear, and they were not about to let a young upstart like Luciano disrupt their established order. Bosses like Joe the Boss Masseria, rooted in tradition and resistant to change, controlled the most lucrative rackets. They had a firm grip on the criminal underworld, and their influence was vast and deeply entrenched. They saw Luciano and his ambitious allies as a threat to their authority. To them, Luciano represented a new breed of gangster, one who was willing to challenge the old ways and bring about a new order. Tensions escalated, and in 1929 the Castellammarese War erupted, pitting Masseria's forces against those of Salvatore Maranzano, another powerful boss. This conflict was not just a battle for control, but a clash of ideologies. The war was a bloody and protracted affair. It dragged on for years, with neither side willing to back down. The streets of New York became a battleground, and the violence seemed to have no end in sight. Rival gangs clashed on the streets of New York, leaving a trail of bodies in their wake. The city was gripped by fear, and the authorities seemed powerless to stop the carnage. Luciano, caught in the crossfire, saw an opportunity. He realized that the chaos of the war could be used to his advantage. By playing both sides against each other, he could weaken his enemies and position himself as the ultimate power broker. He played both sides against each other, secretly plotting with his allies to eliminate both Masseria and Maranzano. Luciano's cunning and strategic mind allowed him to navigate the treacherous waters of the mob war with precision.
In a daring move, Luciano orchestrated Masseria's assassination in 1931. This bold act sent shockwaves through the underworld and marked the beginning of the end for the old guard. He then betrayed and eliminated Maranzano, consolidating his power and ending the war. With both of his main rivals out of the way, Luciano was free to reshape the criminal landscape according to his vision.
The streets of New York ran red with the blood of gangsters, but from the ashes of this conflict, Luciano emerged as the preeminent figure in organized crime. His rise to power was marked by ruthlessness and strategic brilliance. The Castellammarese War was a brutal and bloody chapter in American criminal history, but it marked a turning point. It signaled the end of the old ways and the beginning of a new era in organized crime. The old order had been overthrown, and Luciano, the visionary and ruthless strategist, was now in a position to reshape the underworld in his own image. His influence would be felt for decades to come, as he laid the foundations for the modern American Mafia.